Our speaker is Manuel Fagiano from Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore in Italy. Today, he presents his talk on the topic, The Role of Social Network Sites in Romantic Relationships, from Fragmentation to Integration of Inconsistent Findings.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Manuel Fagiano, and I'm a PhD candidate at Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore in Milan, Italy. And I'm really happy to present you my contribution called The Role of Social Network Sites in Romantic Relationship, from Fragmentation to Integration of Inconsistent Findings. Before starting, I really want to thank all my research team, Professor Pagani, Professor Schoebi, and Professor Donato, for their valuable contribution in this research. But let's start. Why should we talk about romantic relationship and social network sites? Well, I imagine that most of you use social media every day to interact with your partner. Maybe just today you send them a message through WhatsApp or other instant messaging applications saying that you were anxious about something you were about to do. For example, giving a presentation at a conference. Or maybe on Valentine's Day you shared a photo of you having a dinner together. This is exactly the main ways we use social network sites today to maintain our close relationship and share our everyday life with significant others. But we can ask, are these platforms helpful or harmful for our relationships? As always in relational research, the answer is it depends. Several reviews described social network sites as a double-edged sword for couple relationship. On one hand, they can support relationship quality. On the other, they may introduce risk and tension within the couples. A useful starting point is to distinguish between behavior that support relationship, such as warm partner interaction or sharing couple-related content, and behavior that may undermine it, including online surveillance, jealousy-evoking interaction, like having a ex listed on Facebook friends, or social media-related conflict. These already help us explain why social network sites can have both positive and negative implications for romantic relationship, but when we look closely at literature review, they converge on one important point. Findings across studies are often inconsistent and sometimes even contradictory. What does it mean in practice? It means that studies examining the very same behavior, let's take an example on sharing couple related content online, often report associations that vary in strength, in statistical significance, and even in direction. In some cases, one behaviors appear to be beneficial for the relationship, in another, the same behaviors show association is null or even detrimental. We will see concrete example of this pattern shortly. Importantly, keep in mind that those inconsistency is valid for all kind of behaviors. So, what this inconsistency come from? Is that a matter of point of view? Maybe, and this is precisely where the need of the present study emerge. The review will present you aim to clarify this inconsistency by making explicit the methodological lens through which the association between social network sites and romantic relationship has been studied. By lens, I refer to key methodological features, including theoretical framework, research design, measurement strategies, and sample characteristics. Such features in the context of couple and social media shape deeply how the evidence has been produced and interpreted. But what have we done? We have done a systematic review with a specific focus on methodological feature. We looked for more than 60 academic database. We included peer-reviewed studies, and to reduce biases, we just selected sample with not clinical samples and partner currently in a relationship at the time of the data collection. Unlike preview reviews, we consider both quantitative and qualitative studies, and when synthesizing the results, we both synthesize the findings but also the key methodological feature involved in the studies. This process resulted in a final pool of 65 studies that we clustered around different behaviors. Today we will focus only on pro-relationship focused behaviors, so all the behaviors that should promote a better relationship quality. Across the literature, three broad forms of inconsistency emerge. Theoretical fragmentation, so the different theoretical point of view through which we look at the same behavior. Measure fragmentation, how we operationalize and measure a behavior. And then heterogeneity in design and sample constraints. So basically, the study tend to use cross-sectional design, individual level design, and the same sample characteristic. Now, I can imagine you asking yourself, so what? What can we do? What can we learn? I will illustrate this issue through concrete example. In particular, I will focus on pro-relationship focused behavior, and I will show you how addressing these three sources of inconsistency can help us better understand when and how social network sites supports or fail to support romantic relationship quality. Let's start with a first example, the self-disclosure. By self-disclosure, we basically mean opening our heart to a partner. So sharing with a partner information, emotion, and experience that are personally meaningful or intimate. Decades of relationship research in the offline context suggest that self-disclosure can promote intimacy and foster mutual understanding, and that partners use self-disclosure in different ways for look to support, for look for intimacy, to understand each other. But what happened in the context of online? If we look at the quantitative literature which tend to model this process, the picture is far from uniform. Some studies find positive association between online self-disclosure and relational outcome, such as intimacy or communication quality. However, other studies report negative or null association. In other words, evidence are mixed. One key perspective for understanding this inconsistency is to look closely at how self-disclosure was measured. For example, in Binance Sullivan, self-disclosure is operationalized in terms of breadth, how many topics partners discuss and disclose online, and depth, how emotionally profound this sharing is. In both cases, however, disclosure here is intended as partner-directed, specifically to the partner. By contrast, in Lee and colleagues, use on lifestyle disclosure is measured as a disclosure to a broad audience, not only to the partner, to all our social network. So in the first case, disclosure represents a relational dyadic process. In the second, it reflects an individual addressing a broad audience that may include the partner, but is not limited to them. So, is disclosure good or bad for our relationship? Let's change perspective and consider qualitative literature. Here, a more nuanced pictures emerge. Partners often report that certain features of online communication, the so-called digital affordances, are helpful somehow and can facilitate disclosure. Let's take an example. After a conflict, participants refer that it may feel easier to apologize or open through messaging because mediated distances reduces emotional intensity. Having a synchronous conversation can help disclose. At the same time, however, this very same distance can become a source of misunderstanding. Delayed responses or lack of replies after a moment of openness often are interpreted negatively and can generate tension. You are not replying because you don't care, not because you are doing something else. Moreover, qualitative accounts suggest that partners know that not all topics are suitable for digital channels. They think that highly sensitive or conflict-related topics requires richer, more immediate forms of communication, like face-to-face. So, is disclosure good or bad for couples? Again, it depends on what is shared and how deeply we need to share something. Digital affordance may make it easier to open up, but it can also make mutual understanding more frail. Let's make another example of positive behavior, relational maintenance. In general terms, relational maintenance refers to a set of behaviors that partners use to preserve or sustain the relationship over time. In literature, this behavior range from everyday positive interaction, such as expressing affection or appreciation, to more deliberate action aiming at protecting the relationship, such managing conflict or making the relationship publicly visible to signal commitment both to the partner but also to alternative partner. What happens when maintenance process move into the digital mediated online environment? The first thing that we have to say is that we don't have an operationalization, a measure that um, we agree on to look at maintenance behavior. We usually use ad hoc measurement taken from the offline context and adapted to social network and specifically on Facebook. Not surprisingly, findings here are mixed. Some studies link greater maintenance activity to higher relationship satisfaction or closeness, while others show a negative association, higher maintenance, lower experience of love as commitment and satisfaction. But let's see how they operationalize differently maintenance. In the first case, it seems something that partners do routinely, sending affectionate messages, expressing love on the online. In the other case, it seems a very public form of maintenance, liking, commenting, sharing content with a partner, uh, including a partner, not with. Again, maybe changing his perspective can help us. In qualitative research, for example, participant reports two different forms of online maintenance behavior. The ambient present, so everyday micro interaction, meme sharing, fatigue exchange that can sustain our relationship, and then a more strategic form of maintenance, a public display aimed at signaling that we are committed to our partner or to the broader network of relationship that we have. So, in this sense, maybe ambient presence as a routinary maintenance is very useful through the relationship, while public display maybe is useful in the beginning of our relationship, and the results of Northrop and Smith can be seen as the more the partner are committed, the less they need to signal it publicly on social network sites. But this is a hypothesis because we don't have longitudinal studies. So basically, we can say that this type of maintenance changes over time within the relationship. Before concluding, as we are an international conference on relationship research, I want to share you two broad limits that research on social networks has. The first one is the need for diversity and inclusion because the studies are really predominantly Western, on student sample, young couples, and very limited sexual minorities. I think that here we can bring a very new perspective on bringing the know-how that we have on how cultural context can shape differently the relationship. And then another limits of the actual research is that we need a relational perspective. There is a very big limit of dyadic design, lack of attention on relational stages and how it changes over time, and interdependence between partners is always overlooked with only individual design. So, in conclusion, I think that we had to know more about social network sites and their effect on couple relationship, but maybe the question is no more how much of our behavior, but maybe under which condition, when, why. Then, if you ask me what I think about it, I think that social network sites are very powerful relational media, and I think that they are more suitable for staying connected in everyday life, feeling close even when they are apart, but they are not the ideal space for deep emotional work. And I can give you a spoiler about our research project. They are not the best way even to repair after a conflict. Maybe there is a relational cost under this. Well, if you want to know more, I suggest to read all this valuable contribution, and I'm looking for your feedback. So write me down or let's make a question in the conference. Thank you so much for your attention.